Hi all, I'd like to ask you, the YouTube audience today, the question, why does it all depend? So what do I mean by that question? Well, once I was sitting in post-mortem analysis with a game of Luke McShane, Grandmaster Luke McShane, one of the UK's strongest Grandmasters, and after the game Luke was saying, it all depends, as if, it's basically his motto, and it did make me question the generalizations we make in chess. For me personally, I've always steered towards making generalizations and trying to learn from experience. So I won actually the Lloyd's Under-18 Junior Tournament in 1989, way back in 1989, and I had this motto of basically, using my best resources around the opponent's king. And I don't know if it gave me confidence to attack, but I beat 3 people much higher rated than me at the time, and I managed to come equal first with Michael Harris. So, but I won on tiebreaker. So I was presented a prize by John Nunn, and it was a great time in my life winning that tournament. But ever since then, I've always tried to generalise, and take that idea further, that generalisation, about being resourceful, using resources in the best way. And I always thought king safety was a major thing to conclude. Statistically, a lot of games are going to be won or lost due to the king safety aspect. So that really, was central in my thinking. But then, later, really you can win games in all sorts of ways. You can win because of passed pawns. You can win because of other things. So if you limit your thinking to winning in a particular way, then you're limiting your range of winning opportunities. And so really it comes back to this idea that if you remain flexible in your thinking, you're not really going to be biased by any stereotypical thoughts, like attack the opponent's king. So I want to keep, the debate going on this question, but I'm going to show you a game at the same time which kind of demonstrates the concept as well. So it was Anand against Kasparov in the Intel Rapid, I think it's 25 minutes per player, and it was played in 1995. I'm not sure if they had a time increment. If you do know, please let me know in the comments. So Anand was white and he played e4, and Kasparov played c5, so it's a fighting Sicilian defence game. After knight f3, d6 was played. And now after d4 we see the open Sicilian, and this is all standard stuff. And now bishop g5, so a kind of fearsome, aggressive move. White's preparing potentially to castle queenside after queen d2. So in fact, queen d2 was played, and now castle's queenside. So we have here a very sharp position between two world champions. Well now Anand is definitely to be considered an official world champion after beating Kramnik in the recent match. So this game in 1995 I think is particularly interesting now. So after f4, it seems Kasparov doesn't, as a general principle, shouldn't want to weaken his king safety in any way, but he plays h6, and even more remarkable, after h4 Anand is offering a whole piece sacrifice now, a whole bishop, in order to rip open the h-file. I believe h4 has been played before, but it shows a little bit of bravery perhaps by Kasparov that he is going to accept this piece sacrifice. But first he's going to take on d4, and now he takes the bishop. So seemingly he's breaking this rule, this generalization about having an unsafe king and giving the opponent, a potentially dangerous and lethal h-file to attack with. So after hg he now plays knight g4. So one of the points of knight g4 is that at least the h2 square is covered, so there isn't a sort of queen g1 to h2 maneuver at the moment, but Anand facilitates it by playing bishop e2. He doesn't seem to be in any rush. He can threaten that knight, snap it off, and then play a crude maneuver with his queen and mate black on the h file, or so it seems. So that is the plan. After e5, now queen g1, so we see the queen rerouting, and now Kasparov simply casually takes on f4. So how is Kasparov creating the exception that he's not just going to be mated on the h-file? Well, white takes on g4, so Kasparov just recaptures, seemingly allowing the lethal Queen H2. However, here, is where Kasparov shows that actually this might not be fatal for black. He plays F5, so he's giving his king an escape square, F7. Now, the computer suggestion is actually G6 here, so maybe, Anand didn't play in the most precise way. It was a blitz game after all. He actually lunged forward immediately with his queen, so Queen H7 check. And after King F7, we now see Rook H6, so exploiting that pin on the pawn, threatening Queen G6 check. And here, Kasparov, seemingly content with a draw by perpetual check, played actually Bishop takes G5. Now I say there's a draw by perpetual because Queen G6 can force a draw. So for example, King G8, then Queen H7. And then if the king dared move to E7, then Queen E6 would be mate. So that's no good. So basically, after this Bishop takes G5, Anand didn't want to go for that draw by perpetual. He played actually Rook H takes D6. And here we see Kasparov completely, refuting the attack in a seemingly elegant way, but maybe not the most precise way. The engine suggestion is Queen E7. Ripke thinks Queen E7 is really good, or F3 check. But actually, what was F3? So that's a very good move that was played apparently. King B1, and now Queen takes D6. So perhaps here Black has an even better move, F takes G2. But as I say, it was a blitz, game, and Kasparov's intuition was telling him, just take the rook, sack the queen temporarily, because now this F pawn is becoming a very dangerous passed pawn. So F takes G2, so forcing the queen's retreat to stop it from queening. And now the pawn could be protected with Bishop F3. The game continued with Queen G3, and now Kasparov played Rook H8. Again, perhaps not the most accurate. Actually, the engine move, which seemingly, it thinks Black's having a crushing position, is Rook AD8. But let's not get into that. Let's just say Rook H8 was played. After Queen takes G5, now Rook H1 check. And now after Knight D1, Kasparov queened, and at the same time protecting that sensitive G6 square from a check from the white queen. After Rook D7, there's no real threat now, so King F8. There's no direct way of mating the black king. But after check here and King G8, Anand went disastrously wrong. He needn't have lost the game so quickly. He would only be the exchange down if he had first played Queen F7 check and then took the bishop. But by immediately taking the bishop on F3, he's allowing Kasparov to play immediately Rook F8, a very powerful tempo gain, because now Rook F1 is very, very difficult to parry, picking up a piece. In the game after Queen B3 check King H7, Anand resigned, but he would have given himself a much greater fighting chance by playing check and now taking the bishop. There's no Rook F8, and for example, Rook E8. This isn't so clear. In fact, Ripke gives this position, for example, as equal. So if White's only the exchange down, and also has a pawn for it, then there's still a lot of fight left in the position. In fact, it might be equal. But anyway, the real reason I'm giving this game is it seems to break general principles. Kasparov seemed to give Anand an attack on a plate by taking the bishop on G5. So Kasparov is challenging that assumption of it all depends. He's not concerned, it seems, about his own king's safety. And also, of course, he remains dynamic in terms of sacrificing his queen. So that's another all depends, motto broken. Because he's exploiting the other dynamics in his position, the passed pawn potential. And the other aspect of the game is the final inaccuracy. So even though White was seemingly in a difficult position at this stage, if he had just played a little differently with Queen F7, the outcome could have been completely different. So really, this game is evidence that it all depends on the position. Whether you can use your stereotypical conclusions from past experience. Can you just go for the opponent's king or not? So here black had used the passed pawn potential as a counter-attacking mechanism and just ridding white of the potential to mate the black king, so made the game more about material and position rather than about being mated. So I hope this can create a stimulating discussion, this idea that in chess it really all depends on the position and not any bias you might have picked up from experience. Even though those biases, they often pay off with great results. Often it does it does win points very easily to go for the opponent's king, but it might not always be the best thing to do objectively in the exact position you have on the board. Please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.